My name is Zoe, I'm 19 years old, and I'll never forget the day I realized how little I mattered to the people who were supposed to care about me the most. It was my birthday, a day I'd secretly hoped might finally be different, that maybe, just maybe, I'd feel loved or at least seen. My mom had gathered us in the living room. My younger brother, Ethan, sat on the couch, practically bouncing with excitement. He always got what he wanted. Me? I'd learned not to expect much. But when my mom handed Ethan a small wrapped box, I still wasn't prepared for what came next. He tore into it, and his face lit up with a smile so bright it almost hurt to look at. Inside was a brand new iPhone, the latest model, the one he had been begging for all year. I clapped politely, though my stomach twisted. I tried to tell myself maybe she had something for me too. When my mom turned to me, she handed me a flat package and an envelope. I opened the package first, a plain, spiral notebook, the kind you'd find in the clearance aisle at Walmart. My heart sank, but I forced a smile. Then I opened the envelope. Inside was a $10 bill. That's it. I looked at her, waiting for an explanation. She laughed and said, "That's an investment into your bright future, Zoe. You love writing, don't you? Now you have paper and money to get started." Her words burned. An iPhone for Ethan. A notebook and $10 for me. That was how much my bright future was worth in her eyes. That evening, after the fake smiles and forced cake, I sat in my room staring at the notebook on my desk. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't keep living like this, ignored, undervalued, invisible. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed in a few clothes, my old cracked phone, and the $10 bill. By midnight, I was walking down the dark streets of our small town, the cold biting my skin. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Mom. "Don't forget to pay the rent." My chest tightened, but then I smirked. I pulled the $10 out of my pocket, typed back a reply, and sent them the money through Venmo. No words, just the transfer. It was my last message to them. That was the night I left home, and the night I started planning how to take back everything they'd stolen from me. When I walked out that night, I didn't have a clear plan, but I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going back. Not after years of being treated like an afterthought, not after that humiliating gift on my birthday. I spent the first night at a 24-hour diner near the highway. I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a black coffee, and nursed it for hours while the waitress gave me sympathetic glances. I could tell she knew I was running from something. She didn't ask, though, and I was grateful for that silence. By morning, I had no idea where I'd sleep next. I didn't have much, but I had one thing my brother and even my mom never had: determination. They had always underestimated me, and that would become my greatest weapon. That first week was rough. I bounced between shelters and couches of people I barely knew from school. Every night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, repeating the same thought: they're not going to win. I'll make something of myself, even if it kills me. I kept that notebook my mom gave me. At first, I hated it. It felt like a cruel reminder of how little she thought of me. But slowly, I started using it. Each page became a record of my plans, my anger, my goals. I wrote about how unfairly they treated me, how Ethan always got the best of everything, and how I was expected to pick up the pieces. I wrote about my promise: one day, I'd make sure they regretted every smirk, every dismissive word, every moment they made me feel like I wasn't enough. I found a part-time job at a small bookstore downtown. It didn't pay much, but it gave me some stability. Plus, it kept me surrounded by books, stories of people who fought, who survived, who rose from nothing. I clung to those stories like they were my lifeline. And in the back of my mind, I began sketching out my own story. A story where the girl who got a notebook and $10 would turn those scraps into a weapon. One night, as I closed up the shop, I checked my phone out of habit. Another text from Mom blinked across the cracked screen. "You can't just run away every time life gets hard. You'll come crawling back. You always do." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I laughed, cold and bitter. She had no idea who she was dealing with anymore. I wasn't crawling back. I was coming for everything they thought I didn't deserve. The bookstore was my safe place, but it was also my launch pad. I worked late hours, read everything I could get my hands on, and listened to customers' conversations like I was gathering intelligence. Every piece of information felt like a puzzle piece I might need later. One Friday night, a woman came in just before closing. She was dressed sharply, the kind of person you could tell had money before she even opened her mouth. She asked if we carried books on entrepreneurship. I led her to the section, and we started talking. Her name was Caroline. There was something about the way she spoke, confident, direct, no nonsense, that pulled me in. I don't know what she saw in me, a tired 19-year-old in thrift store jeans, but when she asked about my own plans, something inside me cracked open. I told her the truth. Not everything, but enough, how I wanted to build something of my own, how I was tired of being treated like I didn't matter. She didn't laugh. She didn't brush me off. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Good. Anger is fuel. Don't waste it." That sentence stuck with me. Caroline started stopping by more often. Eventually, she offered me a side gig, organizing files, scheduling meetings, basic assistant work for her small real estate business. The pay was double what I made at the bookstore. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone was taking me seriously. With that money, I rented a tiny studio apartment. It was barely more than 4 walls and a mattress on the floor, but it was mine. No one could take it away from me. Each night, I'd sit on the floor with my notebook and write down everything I wanted. Stability. Success. And revenge. Always revenge. Because even though I was moving forward, I never forgot the texts, the laughs, the way Ethan waved his iPhone in my face while I held a notebook in $10 like some charity case. I wanted them to see me rise higher than they ever dreamed I could. I wanted them to choke on their smugness when they realized that the failure of the family had left them behind. One evening, Caroline handed me a slim envelope after work. "For your future," she said with a small smile. Inside was a check for $1,000, my bonus for the months I'd been working for her. I almost cried right there in front of her. That night, in my little apartment, I spread the check on the table and opened my notebook. I wrote a new word in big, bold letters across the top of the page. Beginnings. And under it, I started to sketch the first concrete steps of how I would rise high enough to make sure my mom and Ethan would regret every choice they made. The $1,000 check felt like the first brick in the foundation of my new life. For the first time, I wasn't just scraping by, I was building something. I used most of it wisely. I paid 2 months' rent up front, bought a used laptop that actually worked, and invested in decent clothes for work. But I kept $100 aside for something else, something symbolic. I bought a leather-bound journal, thick with empty pages, and on the first one I wrote in all caps, "Revenge is success." That journal became my blueprint. Working with Caroline opened doors I never thought possible. She took me to networking events where I was the youngest in the room by at least a decade. At first, people overlooked me, assuming I was just her assistant. But I paid attention. I listened, took notes, and slowly learned how business, money, and power really worked. I wasn't just her assistant, I was a sponge, soaking up everything. And then, the opportunity came. Caroline asked me to pitch her a project, something small, just to test my ideas. I stayed up for nights drafting a plan to renovate and flip one of her rundown properties. When I presented it, my voice shook, but my plan was solid. To my shock, she didn't just nod politely, she gave me the green light. I threw myself into it. Every hour outside of work, I researched contractors, budgets, and designs. It was exhausting, but when the property finally sold for a profit, Caroline looked at me differently. Not as a kid, not as an assistant, but as someone who could stand on her own. The profit wasn't huge, but my cut was enough to push me further ahead than I'd ever been. That night, sitting on the floor of my tiny apartment, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving, I was winning. But victory is addictive. And it made my anger burn even hotter. Because while I was clawing my way up from nothing, I knew exactly what was happening back home. Ethan was spoiled, wasting time on that iPhone, probably bragging about things he didn't earn. My mom was still playing favorites, still treating me like I was disposable. They thought I'd fade away. They thought I'd come crawling back. But what they didn't know was that I was building an empire from the scraps they left me. And when the time came, I'd make sure they saw it. I'd make sure they felt it. Because nothing cuts deeper than being proven wrong by the person you least expected to succeed. I told myself for months that I needed to focus only on building, not on revenge. But the truth is, both were tangled together. Every dollar I earned, every contract I signed, every late night I spent hunched over my laptop, I thought of them. One Saturday afternoon, I was scrolling through social media when Ethan's face popped up on my feed. He was at some party, holding up that shiny iPhone like it was a trophy. The caption read, "Best birthday ever. Thanks, Mom Red Heart." It was like a knife twisting in my chest. He was still being celebrated, still being spoiled, while I was out here bleeding for every inch of progress. That's when I decided it was time for my first move. I didn't want to go back to them empty-handed. I wanted to show up as someone they couldn't ignore. Someone they'd have to look at and realize they had thrown away. So I picked my target, Ethan. It started small. I knew from old conversations and mutual friends that he wasn't exactly careful online. He posted everything, locations, photos, even his mom's car with the license plate visible. With a little digging, I found out he'd been skipping classes, lying to my mom about grades, and spending way too much money on gaming apps. I didn't plan to ruin him, not yet. I just wanted to plant the first seed of doubt in my mom's mind. Using an anonymous email, I sent her screenshots of Ethan's failing grades and a photo of him at a bar with a fake ID. I didn't add a message, just attached the evidence and hit send. That night, I got a text from Ethan. "Yo, did you tell Mom about my grades? She's freaking out." I smiled in the dark of my studio. I didn't reply. It wasn't much, but it was the first crack in their perfect little world. And it felt good, too good. The next morning, I wrote in my leather journal. Step 1, shake the foundation. Step 2, build higher. Step 3, strike harder. I wasn't done, not even close. This was just the beginning. The email to my mom had done its job. Ethan's world wasn't collapsing yet, but the cracks were there. And cracks always spread. Meanwhile, my own life was shifting. Caroline kept giving me more responsibility, more freedom to take on projects. I wasn't rich yet, but I was climbing. Each deal we closed put more money in my pocket and more confidence in my stride. But I knew I couldn't move too fast with revenge. If I struck too hard, too soon, it would look obvious. I needed patience. I needed to let them underestimate me until it was too late. So I focused on growing. I took classes at night, finance, marketing, real estate law. I was tired all the time, but every lecture, every note added fuel to my fire. I wasn't just chasing money. I was sharpening my mind into a weapon. One evening after class, I sat in my apartment scrolling through Ethan's social media again. He hadn't slowed down. If anything, he was spiraling faster, posting videos of himself drunk, showing off sneakers he clearly didn't buy with his own money, bragging about things he couldn't possibly afford. That's when an idea clicked. I didn't need to expose him fully yet. I just needed to nudge him toward destruction. People like Ethan always fell, because they believed nothing could touch them. All I had to do was guide the fall. The next week, I created a fake profile, just a generic girl from a nearby college. I added Ethan, and of course he accepted within minutes. It didn't take long before he was bragging to her about how he skimmed cash from Mom's purse, how he used her credit card without her noticing, how he'd figured out a way to fake his attendance records. He was digging his own grave. I saved everything. Screenshots, conversations, timestamps. I didn't release it, yet. It was better as ammunition, waiting until the perfect moment. Because revenge wasn't about striking once. It was about striking when they least expected it, when it hurt the most. And that moment was getting closer. That night, I sat on the floor with my leather journal and wrote one word in big, bold letters across a fresh page. Patient. And underneath, I added. Let them think they're winning. It'll make their fall that much harder. By the time I turned 20, the girl who had walked out with a backpack and $10 was gone. I had my own apartment, a growing bank account, and, most importantly, momentum. But success hidden in the shadows wasn't enough. Revenge required visibility. If I wanted my mom and Ethan to choke on their smugness, they had to see me rise. So I made myself visible. Caroline suggested I start attending networking events not just as her assistant, but as myself. The first time, I was terrified, standing in a room full of suits and polished smiles, clutching a glass of water like it was armor. But when people asked what I did, I forced myself to answer with confidence. I work in real estate investments. Small projects for now, but I'm growing. It felt strange at first, almost like I was pretending. But then the conversations shifted. People started asking me questions, taking my card, even calling me afterward. Slowly, I wasn't pretending anymore. I was becoming exactly what I said I was. I started a small Instagram account to document my journey, before and after photos of properties, motivational posts, glimpses into the grind. At first, only strangers followed. But then, one evening, I noticed a new follower. Ethan. I almost laughed out loud. He probably followed me out of curiosity, maybe even to mock me. But it didn't matter. Now he had a front row seat. Within weeks, my following grew. Nothing viral, but enough to make me look credible. And that credibility turned into opportunities. A local podcast invited me on to talk about being young in business. A small magazine ran a piece on rising entrepreneurs under 25. And with every post, every mention, I knew my mom was seeing it too. She might not say anything yet, but I imagined her scrolling through my photos, realizing the daughter she dismissed with a notebook and $10 was outpacing the son she spoiled with an iPhone. The power shift had begun. But I wasn't satisfied. Visibility was only step one. I didn't just want them to see me succeed, I wanted them to feel the sting of knowing they had pushed me away and created their own downfall. And soon, I would give them the perfect opportunity to feel it. It had been almost a year since I left home, and I hadn't seen my mom or Ethan in person once. Just shadows of their lives through social media. But I knew it couldn't stay that way forever. If I wanted my revenge to hit where it hurt, I had to show up, not as the broke girl they dismissed, but as someone they couldn't ignore. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. One Sunday morning, I got a message from an old neighbor, Mrs. Carter. She still lived 2 houses down from my mom. Zoe, honey, I don't know if you're talking to your family much these days, but your mom is throwing a party for Ethan's high school graduation next weekend. Thought you might want to know. At first, I almost deleted it. Why would I go back into that house? Why put myself in the same space as the people who made me feel invisible? But then I realized, it was perfect. A house full of neighbors, family friends, relatives. A room full of people my mom loved to impress. What better place to walk back into their lives than in the middle of Ethan's celebration? For the next week, I prepared like I was going into battle. I bought a sleek black dress, had my hair done professionally, even splurged on a pair of heels that made me feel 10 feet tall. I wanted to look untouchable. I wanted every pair of eyes to turn when I walked in. The day of the party, I drove up in a borrowed car, Caroline's, sleek and polished. When I stepped out in front of my mom's house, conversations hushed for a moment. People stared. I could feel it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten daughter, I was the unexpected storm. Ethan was in the backyard, grinning with his diploma propped up on the table next to his graduation cake. He didn't notice me at first. But when he finally did, his smile faltered. "Zoe," he said, like he couldn't believe I was standing there. And then came my mom. She froze in the doorway, wine glass in hand, her face pale. I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Ethan. Congratulations." The silence that followed was delicious. I wasn't there to cause a scene, not yet. I was there to plant a seed, the same way I had with that anonymous email. To show them I wasn't gone, I wasn't broken, and I wasn't crawling back. I was rising, and they were about to watch every step of it. Walking into that party felt like stepping onto a stage. Every eye was on me, and for once, I welcomed it. My mom and Ethan had built a story around me, that I was the screw-up, the quitter, the one who couldn't handle life. But here I was, dressed sharp, standing tall, and not begging for scraps. I accepted a glass of water from the drink table and drifted into the crowd, letting whispers follow me. People asked the usual questions. "What have you been up to?" Or, "It's been so long, Zoe, where are you living now?" I answered with calm confidence. "I've been busy with work. Real estate, mostly. Just closed a few projects downtown." I didn't need to brag, the words carried weight on their own. And the best part? My mom was close enough to overhear every single one of them. Ethan tried to brush it off, laughing too loudly with his friends, but I could see the edge in his eyes. He wasn't used to me having the spotlight. He thrived on being the center of attention, and now I was stealing it without even trying. At one point, my mom finally pulled me aside. She still had that fake smile plastered on her face for the sake of the guests, but her voice was tight. "What are you doing here, Zoe?" I tilted my head, feigning innocence. "It's Ethan's big day. I came to celebrate. Isn't that what family does?" Her eyes narrowed. She didn't believe for a second that I was just there to be nice. But she couldn't make a scene in front of everyone. That was the beauty of it. Her power over me had always been behind closed doors, but in public, she had an image to protect. And I was going to use that against her. Later, when it was time to cut the cake, I slipped into a conversation with one of Ethan's teachers. Casually, I mentioned, "It's impressive he graduated on time, considering how much he likes to party. I saw some of his posts the other night, wow." The teacher frowned, curious. Ethan's face went red. He knew exactly what I was doing, even if no one else did. I didn't stay long. I didn't need to. I had walked in, stolen attention, unsettled my mom, and left Ethan sweating bullets. That was enough for round one. When I left, I caught my reflection in the car window before driving off. I didn't look like the girl who left with a notebook and $10. I looked like someone dangerous. And I knew, this was only the beginning of tearing down everything they had built. After the graduation party, I knew I had struck the right nerve. Ethan hadn't said much that night, but I could see it in his eyes. He was rattled. And when Ethan got rattled, he made mistakes. A week later, I saw the first cracks. Word spread through our old neighborhood that Ethan had been caught skipping his summer job shifts at the hardware store. Then came whispers that he'd maxed out one of Mom's credit cards on sneakers and electronics. None of this surprised me. I already had the screenshots to prove his recklessness, but now it was spilling into the open. I didn't need to expose him yet. All I had to do was give a little push. So, from my anonymous profile, I started sending Ethan messages. Not threats, not insults, just little nudges. "You're smarter than your mom gives you credit for. You don't need that job. You should be enjoying yourself. Or, no one's going to notice if you take a little more money, she owes you." And like a fool, he listened. He was greedy. He thought he was untouchable. He was building his own trap, and I was holding the blueprints. Meanwhile, I was climbing higher. Caroline had trusted me with more deals, and one in particular paid out big, big enough that I upgraded from my studio to a sleek one-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows. The kind of place my mom would never believe I could afford. I started posting photos, not in a bragging way, but strategically. A shot of the city skyline from my apartment. A picture of me at a closing, pen in hand. Just enough to show success, not enough to look like I was flaunting. And of course, I knew my mom and Ethan were watching. Ethan never unfollowed me. My mom pretended she didn't care, but I'd see her name pop up in the views on my Instagram stories. They were both keeping tabs. Good. That was the point. The more they saw me rising, the more it dug into them. And with Ethan spiraling out of control, it was only a matter of time before Mom started comparing us, the daughter she discarded versus the son she worshipped. I didn't have to destroy them overnight. I just had to keep pressing on the cracks until the whole thing collapsed. And when it did, I'd be there to watch. Up until now, my focus had been on Ethan. He was easy prey, careless, spoiled, arrogant. But if I really wanted revenge, I had to aim higher. I had to go after the source. My mom. She was the one who made me feel worthless. The one who laughed when she handed me that notebook and $10 bill, calling it an investment. She had built her identity on being the perfect single mom who gave her son everything. But I knew the truth, her golden boy was rotting from the inside out. And I had the receipts to prove it. I waited for the right moment. That summer, my mom hosted a backyard barbecue. Another chance to brag about Ethan, another chance to show off to the neighbors. I wasn't invited, of course, but I didn't need to be. I had something better. The morning of the barbecue, I sent out a batch of emails. Screenshots of Ethan's drunken posts, his fake ID, the messages he sent about stealing from her, even proof of the money he skimmed off her credit card. I sent them anonymously, not to everyone, just to a handful of her closest friends. The ones she cared most about impressing. I could only imagine the whispers that followed. The sideways glances. The polite but pointed questions. By evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, full of rage. "What the hell did you do? Mom's freaking out. She won't stop crying. Everyone knows." I sat back on my couch, wine glass in hand, and smiled. But the real satisfaction came the next day. I got a call from Mrs. Carter, the same neighbor who'd told me about Ethan's graduation party. She never asked if it was me, she just wanted me to know what she'd seen. "Your mother looked broken, Zoe. Like she didn't know which way was up." And Ethan, he stormed out halfway through the party. People were whispering about him all night. Perfect. Exactly as planned. But I wasn't done. This wasn't about embarrassing them once. This was about dismantling everything. And now that the mask had slipped, my mom would be scrambling to keep her image intact. Which meant she was vulnerable. And I was ready to press harder. The fallout from the barbecue lingered. For years, my mom had crafted this picture-perfect version of her life. Hardworking single mother, proud of her gifted son, raising him to be better than everyone else's kids. But now? That picture had cracks. And in a town like ours, cracks spread fast. I didn't even have to do much. The whispers did the work for me. "Did you hear about Ethan? Poor Susan, after all she's done for him. Maybe Zoe wasn't the problem after all." That last one was my favorite. Meanwhile, my life was moving in the opposite direction. Caroline had introduced me to a developer looking for young talent, and I jumped at the chance. Within months, I had my name attached to a big renovation project downtown. For the first time, my name, not just Caroline's. I started showing up in local business papers, little blurbs here and there. Up-and-coming investor Zoe making waves in the downtown property scene. My Instagram following grew, too. People loved the story, the young woman who built herself from nothing. And I made sure my mom and Ethan saw every headline, every photo. Sometimes I wondered if they sat at the dinner table scrolling through their phones, seething as my face popped up again and again. But I wanted more than quiet satisfaction. I wanted public contrast. So, when the city announced a small business expo, I signed up as a speaker. Just a 10-minute talk about real estate and entrepreneurship, but it was enough to get my photo on the flyer, my name on the program. The day of the expo, as I walked onto the stage, I scanned the crowd, and nearly laughed out loud. There she was. My mom, sitting in the back row, pretending she was just supporting the community. I spoke with confidence I didn't even know I had. I told my story, not everything, but enough. About starting with nothing, about being overlooked, about fighting to be taken seriously. The audience clapped, some even stood. And when I stepped down, people lined up to shake my hand. I glanced at my mom as I walked past her. She couldn't meet my eyes. Good. Let her sit there and watch as the daughter she dismissed became someone important. Let her stew in the knowledge that she had bet everything on Ethan, and he was crumbling, while I was rising higher every day. This was the second blow. Not just tearing her image apart, but replacing it with mine. And it was only going to get worse for her. After the expo, something shifted. My mom couldn't hide from the truth anymore, not from herself, not from the neighbors, not from anyone. The whispers had turned into conversations, and conversations into judgments. But Ethan? He was unraveling faster than I expected. He stopped posting flashy pictures online. Instead, his feed became a mess of half-hearted selfies and cryptic captions about people betraying him. From the outside, it looked like teenage angst. But I knew the truth, he was caving under the weight of his own lies. Then came the real twist. One night, I got a message from an unknown number. At first, I thought it was spam. But when I opened it, my jaw tightened. It was Ethan. Zoe, I know it was you. I don't care how you did it, but I know you're the reason Mom's on my case. You ruined everything. But guess what? I'm done protecting her. You think she's so perfect? You don't know half of it. I almost laughed. The golden boy, the favorite child, ready to turn on his own mother. It was pathetic and beautiful. Over the next few days, more messages came. Long, angry rants. Complaints about how Mom never let him breathe, how she used him to brag, how he was tired of carrying her expectations. He spilled secrets, too. Things I never knew. About her debts, the lies she told family friends, the way she manipulated people for sympathy. I wrote everything down in my leather journal. Every word, every confession. This wasn't just ammunition, it was dynamite. Meanwhile, my career was accelerating. The downtown project I'd been working on finally wrapped up, and the sale brought in enough profit to put my name on the map for good. Local papers called me a rising star. A regional news site even ran a profile on me. I made sure to share the article everywhere. Ethan saw it. My mom saw it. The whole town saw it. And the contrast couldn't have been sharper. Me, young, successful, respected. Ethan, slipping, angry, bitter. Mom, cornered, her perfect image crumbling. It was all falling into place. And soon, I'd have to decide, was I content letting them collapse on their own? Or was it time to strike with everything I had? I could have stopped then. Ethan was crumbling, my mom's reputation was hanging by a thread, and I was thriving. But revenge isn't about stopping halfway. It's about finishing the job. And I wasn't finished. I went back through every message Ethan had sent me. The late-night rants, the confessions, the venom he spewed about Mom. Some of it was petty, but some of it was gold, proof of her debts, her lies, and the way she manipulated everyone around her. I compiled it all into a neat little package. Screenshots, voice notes, receipts. Then I added a timeline of her behavior, the way she pushed me aside, the way she paraded Ethan around while burying her own mess. I didn't embellish, didn't dramatize. I didn't have to. The truth was damning enough. And I knew exactly where to drop it. There was a local Facebook group, our town community, where neighbors shared everything from lost dogs to garage sales. But it was also where gossip traveled fastest. I uploaded the file under an anonymous account, with one short caption. The truth about Susan and her golden boy. Within hours, it spread like wildfire. People were tagging each other, commenting in shock, dissecting every detail. By evening, my mom's phone must have been lighting up non-stop, because Ethan's angry texts came pouring in. Are you happy now? Everyone hates us. Mom won't leave her room. You destroyed her life. I stared at the messages for a long time. Then I typed one reply. No. She destroyed mine first. And then I blocked his number. The next day, I drove past my old neighborhood. I didn't stop, but I slowed enough to see the house. The lawn was overgrown, the blinds drawn tight. No cars in the driveway. The once bustling house, the house where I had been humiliated and dismissed, was silent. For the first time, I felt it. Closure. I had taken everything they tried to deny me, worth, respect, power, and turned it into a weapon. And when the dust settled, I was the only one left standing. But I wasn't just standing. I was soaring. And the final blow had landed exactly where it needed to. The weeks after the truth came out felt strange. Quiet. For so long, I had been fueled by anger, by the need to prove myself, by the fire of revenge. And now, I had one. My mom and Ethan disappeared from the spotlight. No more photos, no more bragging posts, no more parties in the backyard. The neighbors who used to fawn over them barely mentioned their names. If they did, it was with pity or disapproval. Their perfect little kingdom had collapsed. And me? I was free. Without the weight of their voices in my head, I felt lighter than I had in years. My business was thriving, bigger projects, bigger profits, my name spreading beyond just our small town. Caroline, who had started as my mentor, became more like family. Real family. The kind that built you up instead of tearing you down. One evening, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, a sleek place overlooking the city lights. I had a glass of wine in one hand and my leather journal in the other. Flipping through the pages, I saw all the steps I had written down: shake the foundation. Build higher. Strike harder. Patient. And then the last one, finish. I closed the journal. It had served its purpose. Instead of writing about revenge, I started writing about my future. Trips I wanted to take. People I wanted to meet. Businesses I wanted to build. My story was no longer about them, it was about me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their approval or trying to earn a place I never had. I had carved out my own. And I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. I thought back to that birthday night. The notebook, the $10 bill, the laughter. At the time, it felt like an insult. But now? Now I saw it differently. That notebook had become the blueprint for everything I built. That $10 had been the last thing they ever gave me, before I gave myself the world. Revenge had been sweet. But freedom? Freedom was even sweeter. And as I leaned back, watching the city sparkle below, I realized something. I didn't need them. I never had. And I never would again.